Yeah. So
Thank you.
what we have started here is like whatever the sample project that we have taken in our the hospital appointment booking system. So we have created the JIRA board for this project. And this is a trial version. I think I hope it will be for 14 days or 30 days. I remember. And I just created the sample stories in the backlog so that we can do the sprint planning. So the HAS is nothing but it is our project code, the hospital appointment system. So this is already, it will be automatically taken when we create the project title. So it will take the code as HAS, and then you can see the sprint one, and we will add the
Okay.
dates for the sprints. So that our primary task is to first we need to create the backlog refinement. We need to have the backlog grooming. So now
Okay.
what we are discussing here is like we are identifying like if we follow the waterfall model, what are the different artifacts that are required for this project? And we have figured out these are the list of the documents that are required when we start working on the project till the project is developed and moved to production. Production in the sense like finally the code is released into the market.
Okay.
So we have the scope document and the BRD business requirement document, the FRS functional requirement specification document, and the SRS software requirement specification document, the stakeholder management workbook if needed, and then the gap analysis worksheet. This is also, it's not mandatory to have. So we are just listing out all the documents that are required for the projects, and then we'll be having the use case diagrams and use case diagrams for the what I'll mention here use case diagrams for the requirements, use cases define the requirements. And then we are having the wireframes designs. I'll mention as a wireframe design. So whenever we have a uh, new screen required, whenever we have a new screen, new UI design required, then we will create a wireframe design with the list of fields required to capture the data. Okay, and then we have the test suite. So test suite, this will be prepared by the QA team, but it is also one of the document that we are going to have. So where we are going to collect this document or this particular section from the QA team, where we need to see all the test cases related to the requirements has been designed or not. And then once it is done, then we will be having the release notes, which indicates that whatever the requirements that are planned for this particular release, we are going to mention these are the set of requirements we are planning for the release of the July 2025. And these are the few risks or mitigations that need to come when we deploy the code into the production. So we will find out the different risks over there, and for each risk, we need to mention how to mitigate this particular risk. So we will provide the alternate solution here, like if what happens if the code is something happens related to the code. So what we need to do? So do we have any backup plan to restore the application or to set the application to be hosted? And then do we have the server backup ready for the deploying the code? And then say, for example, when we are designing the new scripts in the sense like in the database, when we have any new tables, so we need to give the scripts to create the new tables in the UAT database servers. So what happens, like sometimes in the scenarios, like if we execute a new table, create a new table, due to some mismatch in the relationships, like the primary key and the foreign key relationships, few of the tables will be trashed, and then the database will be uh, I think it will be trashed over there. So in that scenarios, we need to have uh, the alternate solution for that one. So we need to have another temporary database which is having all the data before we deploy the code. I mean, before the release of July 2025. So that database is having all the data, all the information till June 2025. So if
Mm.
anything that happens in the July 2025 deployment, when we move the latest code, then we will move the data from the temporary database to the UAT or the live data they are using. So these are the things we need to mention in the release notes for UAT and for production testing as well. So for the production or the go live.
Okay.
And then if we come to Agile, so if we so what are the different documents here? So in some few cases, we are going to get the BRD. This is from no, we are not going to prepare any BRD. We will be getting directly from the BRD, or sometimes we will call it as RFP. So RFP is request for proposal. This will be getting by getting from client. Just in this, we will understand like what is the purpose of this project, and then what is the scope that will be mentioned in this BRD or the request for proposal RFP document, which we will be getting from the client. And then once we get this document, so we will get the understanding like what we are going to develop, like say it's something, for example, like developing an intranet portal for the company. So we will get the thing at the information at the high level in this proposal or the BRD document. And now we have the list of project. I mean the BRD ready. Then we need to check for the tool, project management tool, PMP. Tool, whether it is JIRA or ADO or etc., whatever it may be. So we need to get the confirmation, or we need to confirm what is the tool that we are going to follow. So now, say for example, in this scenario, we have confirmed like we are going with the JIRA as a project management tool. Okay. So now we we have decided that for this project, we are going to use the JIRA framework. So now JIRA setup. JIRA setup should be done for the project. And then what is our next step, and the crucial one when we talk about the Agile or the Scrum process is having the backlog grooming. So what you need to do here is, in this particular step, we need to create user stories, which are nothing but set of requirements. Need to create user stories for the project. And then once the backlog grooming is done, we will say that the backlog is done, and then we are going to have the backlog refinement. So here what we will do, like in the list of from the backlog, we will pick the user stories, pick the user stories which are at in ready state. Ready state, which indicates that they should have description and acceptance criteria should be mentioned clearly in the user story. Okay, so now we will done the backlog refinement, and from the backlog, we will pick the user stories that are in the ready state, where we can say like we will have the description and the acceptance criteria defined for the particular user story. And now we will do for the sprint planning. So before these things, I think we need to have one more. This is nothing but project roadmap. So here we will have the designing the roadmap for the project. We are at high level with the epics or and say the features defined for the project. So we have the project roadmap, and then we will have this tool. We decide what is the tool we are going to implement for this project, and then we will set up our configuration, setup or configuration settings. We can also call it as a configuration settings should be done for the users. So now we have the JIRA setup done, like what we did for this project. And the next step is we need to update our backlog. So we are creating the user stories for the project. So once the backlog grooming is done, then we will be having the backlog refinement. So backlog refinement, what we will do is like we will identify what are the user stories that are in the ready state in the from the backlog section, that what we have. Say in the backlog, if we are having around 30 user stories, among them only 10 of the user stories are having the complete information, which indicates that the description and the acceptance criteria has been defined only for those 10 user stories. Then we will consider like these 10 user stories are ready for the sprint planning. So now we will have the sprint planning. So in the sprint planning, what we will do, we will identify the list of user stories planned for the sprint. Sprint. Once we have the sprint planning, then in the sprint planning itself, when we have the user stories done, then what we will be doing here is like, yeah, so we will create the subtasks if required for the user story. And then we will give the story points. Story points for them. user story, and then assign the user story to the team members with proper start date. We can mention effective start date and end dates. Date, end date. So these, when I talk about the start date and end dates, this start date and end dates are for the particular user story that has been assigned to the team members. Say today we have the sprint planning done. So we thought like among the 10 set of user stories, we are going to pick 5 user stories among them. And we are planning to have a 2 week sprint, and the sprint is going to start from tomorrow. So my user stories start date will be tomorrow. And when I'm going to complete this user story, so if I gave the story points as 3, so it is 3 days. So from tomorrow, like Thursday. So from tomorrow, Thursday, Friday, and by Monday, 3 days will be completing. So by Tuesday morning, when we have this daily stand-up call, I should be updating my status of the user story as completed. And
Okay.
then we will assign the user stories to the team members. Give this to me. Start the sprint. So here we will decide on the sprint. In the sprint planning, what we will do here. So we will be having the sprint duration. We need to identify whether we are going with a 2 week or 4 week sprint. And then we need to have the sprint start date and end dates. And then we need to have the sprint goal. So we'll start the sprint, and then we will be having the DSUs, which is nothing but the and to update the current status of the user story. It's of the user story. And then one more thing here is we need to burn the hours, or we can also say like log hours for the user story, or we can say the task subtask assigned to the member. I mentioned team member. Okay.
Okay.
We have the DSU, and then we'll burn the hours, and we need to monitor daily uh, about the sprint, burn down chart. So monitor the burn down chart for the sprint. And what else we need to do here? So here also the release notes and these two things will remain common for here as well. So we need to maintain the release notes when we move the code from our local environment to the user acceptance UAT testing. And once the UAT testing, okay, and then go lab. So apart from that, yeah, so there is here one more document, which is the post-production validation document. Okay, and we will also be having the post-production document here as well. Some validation document. So these are the list of artifacts required for the project, depend on the methodology that what we are going to follow. So here we have defined the list of artifacts, or we can say the activities that need to be done when before from the start of the project to the till the project is going to live. So now we will have the sprint planning here. The DSUs, these things we'll be considering here, and we'll having the release notes, and then the release notes for the production, and the post-production validation document. So now we will also create one more column here. Who will be the owner? The same. So I'm just checking that are we covered all the required documents for the project. Okay, so this is how. So with this sheet, is it clear, Anjani, to you?
Yeah. Yeah.
So we just did the work of the documents or the artifacts required for the project, simultaneously working in two different environments. If you follow the waterfall methodology, what are the different things that you need to work on it? And then if you follow the Agile methodology, what are the things or activities that we need to done? Uh, what else here is required? Yeah, here also we will be having this one. One step. I think I forgot one more point here. So the thing is, when I mentioned about the user story, we stated with proper description, and along with the acceptance criteria defined. Acceptance criteria. And in this section only, we will also be covering like, and if we have any wireframe designs, so this will be our one more activity added to our list. Any other things? Okay, so we'll start with this initial setup, and whenever we require that, if we miss anything related to the any of the documents or any artifacts that are required for the project, we will add to this particular list. So
Okay.
now we will identify the owners who of this particular document who is going to work on it